Welcome to Signs of the Times. I'm Dr. Willard Register, and we have Stephen Dickie with us again.
Well,
thanks for
having
sticking
me.
by, Stephen.
It's been an enjoyable stay.
I know that you're just itching to get out of here. But we've gone over in the last 5 weeks Islam, God's Forgotten Blessing. It's your book. Hold it up and show the viewers your book. It's available. You'll have the telephone number or the way you can get a hold of it. It's $13. Islam, God's Forgotten Blessing. And it is non-fiction. Says so on the back.
That's right.
So
also inside, it's non-fiction.
Says so also inside. So we've been talking about some very interesting insights into the Muslims, which are in the news every hour today. But Stephen, I want, because this is our last segment, I want to hear it from one who's been there and done that. So my question is, you have alluded to this, you have not explicitly explained it. Now I want you to. Well, if I want to give what we call the gospel, as we understand it, to a Muslim audience, I'm going to travel to Central Asia, where you've been.
That's right.
And you went there as a guest, and as a guest who they knew what you had in mind. Can we build a bridge to reach these people? Now we know that as Christians, Seventh-day Adventist Christians, we have something in common. We don't smoke cigarettes, and we don't drink alcohol, and we don't eat unclean meat as set forth in Leviticus. So it gives you a bridge, but that's only part of an evangelistic series. So I would like you to tell me, now in medicine, and since I'm a doctor, we're always interested in outcome. So before we get done.
That's why they call it a practice.
We're interested in outcome. Yeah, we practice. Probably you were practicing too. How did it come out? You can save that to the end, but how did you do it? You took, what, several years to put together everything?
Took well over 2 years to put everything together.
Okay.
And once I came to understanding that there's new viewers that haven't seen the other 5 programs, I would just want to give a little background. That,
sure.
That in order to reach the Muslim audience, which we're going to talk about today, we established the Children of the East, the story of Hagar and Ishmael and Abraham and Sarah in Genesis. We looked at the story of Jonah, how the prophet Jonah didn't want to go to the Ninevites. That's in Iraq today, because these Ninevites, which at that time were called Midianites and the other ites of the Bible, they were a constant source of problem for the children of the East, or for the Israelites, and so they had a dislike there. We looked at the story of Joseph being delivered from his brothers by the children of the East, otherwise his brothers would have killed him and took him to Egypt. Those were the principles. We looked at God used the children of the East as a judgment in the time of Gideon, but the Midianites, their cup of iniquity filled after 7 years, and then the story of Gideon that all Christians know. These stories were all part of my understanding to put together to establish a base in order to go before a Muslim audience, because I obviously wanted to show them that I understood the roots of their faith. I understood the story about Ishmael and so forth. And as I put this together, and I don't know how other ministers do this, I had a background of the Bible and of the prophetic logic that historicists, Seventh-day Adventists use. And I felt comfortable with that. I would obviously have notes, or when I would do an evangelistic effort, I'd have notes. And I also used pictures from the book of Daniel. So as I started to assimilate all these things in my mind, I couldn't write them down until I understood them. And I knew it had to be second nature to me. Otherwise, I would, to use an old vernacular, I'd be hung out to dry. In other words, it had to be second nature to me. I tried to anticipate every single question that would be asked of me from a Muslim. And because I knew I had to come up with an answer from an Eastern perspective using the Quran as well as the Bible, the book as it's referred to in the Quran, is referred to as the book. I had to have an answer that was valid and yet true. I couldn't hedge the truth. I had to be honest with the truth, because the truth, you cannot shade the truth. I mean, it's there. You can't, it's a fact. And so how do you present that to a Muslim when your perception is that they're maybe even not Christians, obviously. They don't accept Jesus Christ. And so that was the sounding board that I had to start putting everything together in my mind. Once I had it down, as I had read Scripture, I had gone through world history, and I had interviewed other missionaries that had already been there. I had friends who could speak Arabic. I had, by this time, I had met one or two Muslims, but most of my understanding came from my personal interviews with other people. And I knew that this was a little sketchy, because here I am going to a place, my perceptions are only from history, from written word, and from interviews, personal interviews. And so I was in prayer much, and it basically took me probably close to 9 months. Once I had the material down, then I started to put it into, I won't say my memory, but I had to get it second nature in my body. I'd be mowing the lawn. I'd be running over the sermons. I'd be running. How would I ask? How would I present this point? Wonder if this question came in. How would I answer it? And my mind would run that way for months. And I'd write down I'd have a little pad of paper with me, and I'd just write down one word. I'm not a thorough note taker. I would just put down a word to stimulate my thought processes. I got into November, and the meetings were set up to start in January. And I said, I better get with it. We were going to go for a 2-week experiment. That's all it was. Because the invitation that had been given to us by the Central Asian Seventh-day Adventist Church was to come and to do an effort. I was originally wanted to go to Uzbekistan, where the tomb of Daniel's bone was, and so forth. But due to political situations, that wasn't possible. We went to another country in the stands and did it there. There was I might say, a cultural center built that was to minister to the Muslims. And so that's where we went. Once I had these things in my mind, then I started to write. I started to write the sermons, and then it started to flow fairly quickly. I could do a sermon probably every day. I'd get up early in the morning, spend 4 or 5 hours, get it written, I'd look at it again, change it, fiddle with it, and go to the next one. And I had to do 2 weeks nights with one night, so it'd be 10 nights. Once I had that down, then the process of getting the people in the particular country I was going to on board, and I wanted pictures to be made, and on the screen here, they'll be coming up shortly. We had some pictures from the book of Daniel and from the book of Revelation. They're famous pictures. If you've gotten anything in the mail, and they probably had some of these pictures in that. And so in the middle of those pictures, I had what I call timelines. The green one is what we refer to in Seventh-day Adventist circles as a 2300 days. And this shows the time of history. It shows the time of the crucifixion of Christ. It shows the time that when the papal power was taken captive in 1798 by Napoleon's general. All that's there. But the next line, the blue line there in the screen, is what I refer to as a Muslim timeline. That's just a blue line that the times there came from Edward Gibbon. Gibbon was an old Christian historian that wrote much. I think he wrote the
Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire.
Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire. And so those times came from him and so forth. Well, once I had these times down, I had these pictures. I ordered them. They were going to be painted because I wanted to show a couple reasons to do it this way. I use my computer daily, but I also realize that I've been to enough services where the poor pastor gets up and he pushes the magic button and disaster strikes. And I knew that going into a Muslim audience, I better have it right the first time. And so I went with painted pictures. I arrive in the country, about 5 or 6 days before the meetings are going to start, and I said, I want to see the pictures. And they said, what pictures? And disaster had struck right away. And the Lord gave us vinyl pictures, and this whole thing within a matter of 5 days. And by Friday afternoon, we had them on the wall. And it was just a miracle of God, as well as a timeline. All that was made just very rapidly. And so the timeline's in the middle of this banner. We had like 25 foot long, it was over my head. But the reason I wanted the pictures was more than I didn't want to use PowerPoint. I've come to look, when pictures flash on the screen, people see it, and the next picture's up, it's gone. I wanted those pictures to be there so people could remember them. And once I was talking on a subject, I took that particular